Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new week out there so far. There is some things to get into in this morning's video, and of course, the first thing we'll discuss is the tropics. It'll be broken up into two different sections. The first one about the tropical Atlantic. We do have a wave that we are tracking. It's been dubbed an area of interest since Friday per the National Hurricane Center. And I think we could have other areas of interest that are introduced maybe in the next day or two. We're watching some tropical wave activity even behind this. So we'll speak on it. And then we need to watch a little bit closer to home. Some energy can get off the coast of the southeast or over the Gulf and have a shot to maybe gain some tropical characteristics. We've seen that a couple times already this hurricane season. And I could see this happening again sometime this week. National Hurricane Center has not dubbed it an area of interest, but I could see them doing so over the next few days. So we'll speak on everything, get very detailed, go over potential impacts and model guidance and all of that. And then we'll cover today's weather. In a section after that, we'll break it down region by region. There is a risk of strong to severe thunderstorm activity and flash flooding for areas of the country once again for today. And then at the very end, join us for a Bible devotion if you're interested in that. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the Atlantic Basin. We'll circle a couple areas here on your screen. Let's see if we can get this working here, and we do, so we're good to go. This is the main tropical wave right now that has a 20% chance to develop sometime in the next really 48 hours or 7 days. They actually dropped it to a 10% earlier yesterday and then bumped it back up to a 20% chance because there was an uptick in just convection, shower and storm activity with it. We will go over this, but I do want to note there's a big wave coming off Africa right now. This will move into this area. So we're just kind of watching in general. I'm just going to circle a broad area. This entire region over the next several days, I do think we'll just have tropical wave activity. But the big question is this going to really bother anybody? Is this going to develop? Well, we're about to go over model guidance. So this will be the first area we do discuss. And then I just want to watch a little bit closer to home. Nothing showing up right now. But I want to watch this area, and I want to watch this area. I don't know what's going on with that. That was cool. But anyways, let's go on and get off this so we don't get blinded anymore. But this is the chances of tropical development between now and the next 7 days. And it's the same, for the next 48 hours also. There is a 20% chance of this X marks the spot area, which is exactly where our tropical wave is. 20% chance this could develop into a tropical depression or a named storm sometime over the next 48 hours or next few days, but I would say we can just go on and say 48 hours at this point because it is the same percentage from 7 to 2 days, but 20% chance. Now, I could see them putting another risk of tropical development out here for a wave that could develop, a wave or two. It's just the thing is there's a lot of dry air on this area right here, so we'll discuss that later in the video. But like I said, there's nothing that's been dubbed an area of interest in this area, but I do want to watch this area, especially the Gulf. So that's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Nothing scary, or it's just a low chance of tropical development. But the latest Euro, let's go over it. So this is starting off for tomorrow morning. And just think of the greens and the yellows and even some orange and red you see on your screen as, shower and storm activity, tropical moisture. So we started off Tuesday morning, believe it or not, this is a tropical wave right here that's been dubbed that area of interest. This doesn't look any different than, say, this up here, which, by the way, this circled area could develop into something also. But you're getting a lot of moisture over here, and we got a little bit of moisture in between. But that is our tropical wave that has a shot to develop. Now, you continue to move this forward here, and it definitely does not survive once it gets into the Eastern Caribbean. There's a lot of wind shear in this area, typically any time of the year in hurricane season, but especially this time. But there's a lot of dry air on top of these tropical waves also. So if they do find a weakness in the pattern and begin to get north, they go right into that dry air. So that wave that has a 20% chance to develop on this run of the Euro does not survive. Now, there's another wave as we are getting into midway this week that looks like it has a lot of deep tropical moisture with it. So, we keep this in motion and we get into, say, Thursday. And I do want to note, you see the low pressure up here? this could gain some, tropical characteristics, could sneak and take a name. I could see it happening. A lot of times we get these what we call fish storms that they'll develop way out here, take a name out the hurricane, a list of names, but doesn't really bother anybody except, the fish out here in the ocean, right? So let's bring our focus back down here. 10-12 millibar low, Thursday, midday, and you continue to see the L symbolized on your screen. This is just a tropical wave, but it gets a little bit more north in latitude here, and it just never fully develops. So we get all the way into this coming weekend, and it just doesn't really do anything. I would say it's its strongest in the eastern to central Atlantic, but there's another wave right behind it about a week from today, and that tries to get going also, but in general, we're not even seeing anything that you can say, hey, based off the millibar is a tropical storm. Next name is Dexter, by the way, but you can see a bunch of wave activity out here. And I'll note, this goes all the way out to August 1st. When we start to get into August, especially a couple weeks into August, that's when we really start to pay a lot of attention out here in what we call the tropical Atlantic or main development regions, where we get these ocean crossing tropical systems that eventually can impact the greater Lesser Antilles or the lower 48. But I'm not seeing that right now, but it's just a sign that things are slowly waking up out here. And then you look at the GFS, it's the same thing. That first wave does not survive. That's it right here. Encounters wind shear, dry air, and pretty much all the above that does not allow for tropical development. But there is some tropical energy right in here. Once again, just like the Euro showed, GFS showing kind of the same thing. Low pressure right here, and that doesn't really develop. There's some more tropical energy once we get between the 7 to 10 day range out there in the Eastern Caribbean, but nothing really develops. So that's good news. Now the Euro AI model, all it's going to really show is blobs of dark green, and once again, there's that tropical wave. So like I said, I do think the National Hurricane Center will put another area of interest behind the one that's in place right now for out here. So I really think they will, and we'll see what happens. But I move here in time, and that wave still doesn't survive, and some more tropical moisture at the end of the run. Like here's a wave also, but one of the last things I'll say is with this is like I said, I really think I'm going to circle an area. I'm going to take a shot here. I really think they'll put an area of interest right into this region somewhere over the next few updates. Let's see what happens. But moving past that, another way to look at this is energy in the low levels. And if you look at these darker areas of like yellow, orange, even some red, this indicates just more lower level energy in the atmosphere, a little bit of spin. This is just an open wave. You can't even see the wind barbs, rotating cyclonically around that. But there's our next wave that I think will be dubbed an area of interest. And, that will have I would say a multi-day shot to develop. But this will also have a shot to develop up here. I just don't think it'll bother anybody. I don't think any of this stuff will, honestly, at least for the time being. My thoughts change. I do think that this has the potential to gain some of those tropical characteristics. You see that thing spinning up there. But this wave, very compact because there's a lot of dry air around it, does get all the way across the Atlantic. It just doesn't really, develop into much. Now, what's a big reason why these tropical features are not maintaining strength? Well, let's draw on this a little bit. Let's just use yellow. There is a lot of wind shear that, rumbles through the Caribbean. So you'll have a lot of flow kind of shooting through this area. So even if these, wave features do survive, make it into the Eastern Caribbean, it's going to be blasted by shear and directional shear that just disrupts the cyclonic flow of these systems. And just in general, tropical systems don't like wind shear. But I would say the big thing is once these even gain just a sniff of latitude here, they really just run into even more dry air. So you read this, it says the black is dry and all levels. And look at all that. It's just dry air all the way down to the surface of the ocean. So there's a lot of dry air right on top of this. But I will say this is a nice looking tropical wave, a healthy looking tropical wave, and there's even a more healthier one that's about to enter the Atlantic, but there's just so much dry air, and that is because of the deserts, of course, of northern Africa, Saharan dust. So, and that's pretty typical in July. It's funny, somebody mentioned in the comments, and I would agree that it almost seems like you get more tropical activity in June than you do in July. And July is, of course, a little bit closer to the heart of hurricane season, but it does seem like that. It's kind of wild how it works, right? But, you got this little upper level low feature that's going to throw some shear down here into the Caribbean also. But anyways, that's what's really holding back any significant development. But I will tell you, I do think this will bring influxes of moisture into the Caribbean. Like, here's the remnants of our wave that eventually makes into the Caribbean. Does bring a push of tropical moisture, so could get some unsettled weather across the Lesser and Greater Antilles. And then here comes that other wave that'll come off Africa, today. And that eventually, this energy kind of makes it over the Caribbean. So this will probably bring some tropical rains across, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, eventually Jamaica, the Lesser Antilles, really anybody in the Caribbean islands could bring a lot of tropical moisture over the next several days. Now, I will say, between now and the next week, there is some members trying to develop, especially the ones that, stay further south, develop some of this tropical wave activity. And I would say these few members here, this makes up 51 members, the Euro Ensemble. These few members here are certainly from the wave probably behind the area of interest right now. So there is some development showing up, and we'll go another 10 days, another 3 days to the 10-day frame, and shows more tropical wave activity behind it. And it shows a few of these little tropical features surviving into the Caribbean, but I just don't think they'll have much chance. Now, chances of a tropical depression developing between now and the next 7 days, you got... And I really think this is the wave, like I said, behind the wave that's been, dubbed that. I know I've said that a million times, but has the area of interest from the National Hurricane Center. It's going to have that 80 to 90% chance of developing a depression, but sometimes this is a little skewed, guys. Like, it always keeps a chance of a tropical depression developing here in the Southern Caribbean. So I think this is just, sometimes I think about not even showing this because I don't like it that much. It's kind of eye-popping, but it just does not show the picture very well, I don't think. But anyways, a little bit closer to home, won't spend as much time on this. I will say that as a lot of energy from northwest flow gets thrown over the open waters, off the coast of the southeast, same kind of rinse and repeat tropical pattern we've been getting, something tropical could develop. This is starting off tomorrow afternoon, and we got a lot of moisture over Georgia, Florida, even South Carolina. This kind of gets slung back around a ridge of high pressure, then gets back over the Gulf. And I know you're just seeing blobs of green, but just think of this as a lot of tropical moisture that could develop some sort of low-level feature, some sort of lower pressure. And this eventually could get thrown all the way back into Louisiana and Texas. But in general, I would watch for some weak tropical development and then just a lot of moisture associated with this. And the same thing with the Euro. It has that 1014 millibar low it's initializing as, for Tuesday morning, and we could eventually get this to just develop into some sort of tropical system. And, even if it does, I would say it's not going to develop into a hurricane or anything like that. Would you completely rule it out? I would say no. But, you look at this on the Euro Thursday morning, that's a lot of just convection, shower and storm activity, and this could eventually develop some sort of low-level circulation, maybe into a tropical depression, storm. You just got to watch. The reason that I would say 93L didn't is just because it really couldn't. At the end of the day, it was just too close to land. So, and by the way, I will say that, and I didn't even mention this, but the tropical wave ongoing right now across the Atlantic has been dubbed Invest 94L. I didn't really mention it just because I thought it was kind of odd that they dubbed it an Invest, but it is technically Invest 94L, so I should have mentioned that in the first segment of the tropics. But anyways, I don't think it's a huge deal, to be honest with you. But 850 millibar vort, you can see on this run here a little bit of spin as I get into late this work week into closer to the weekend. So there is a little bit of spin in the atmosphere. That's one good thing you can look at when you're trying to find if there is any kind of low-level circulation. But in general, I think this is just going to bring a lot of tropical moisture slingshotted over the Gulf states. And the reds, the purples you see on your screen, that's 2-3 inch precipitation water values. Just think of that as very deep tropical moisture. The air mass is loaded with moisture. Even a downpour could drop an inch of rain. And as we get into Wednesday, this will just swing across the northern half of the Gulf, affect the southern areas of the Gulf states, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi. And then eventually this big chunk of moisture will spin away and get thrown all the way into the Texas coastline. So, this is just going to bring a lot of rain. How much rain? This is rainfall between now and the next week. The purple areas, that's over 1 inch to 2 inches of rain. The red areas is over 2 inches, 2, 3, maybe 4 inches of rain. So a lot of tropical moisture. I'm not seeing anything that reflects 6 to 8 inches of rain or anything like that, but that could change. So just be aware of this for sure. So talking about today's weather, let's restart this and get this in motion. So we're good now. A lot of flash flood warnings ongoing across Missouri. We got some flash flood warnings around the St. Louis area, big chunk of rain and storms. Big area storms is not being handled well by models, by the way. At least the speed of it. It's outrunning where short-range model guidance thinks these storms are. But we got a big area storms rumbling through the central area of Minnesota right now. There's some moisture already dancing around off the coast of the southeast, and you can see it good off the satellite too. So it's already beginning to get going here. And we got some flash flood warnings, along that Mexico, Texas, New Mexico line here. A lot of heavy rainfall down here. And we got steady flow across the northwest with some rain showers. So that's current conditions. Watches, warnings, advisories, a lot of heat alerts, guys. The orange areas, those are heat advisories. The pink areas, or purple, whatever color you want to call it, is extreme heat warnings. And then this is extreme heat watches. I keep forgetting that they've took excessive out and they use extreme. So extreme heat watches in the burgundy colors. We got flood watches scattered about across Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, getting into West Virginia and Virginia. But we got heat advisories for every county in Florida and just about every county in South Carolina. So it's hot, guys. Hot, humid in the Northeast. We're going to talk about you guys. You guys are the only ones that are just enjoying life with the temperatures. The Storm Prediction Center outlook, we do have a slight risk, level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather up here in Montana, getting a little bit into the western Dakotas. Marginal risk around it. This does ooze across the plains, but just a closer look at this. This does include Glasgow, Miles City, over to Wynette, level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Tornado threat is displaced away from that, though. This is across these regions, like of the Dakotas and into Minnesota. 2% risk of a tornado there. And then the wind threat will push it back west. 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail threat, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. The risk of flash flooding, the green area, just a 5% risk. But this is an area that we'll certainly watch out a little bit more for. It stretches from Carbondale, Evansville down to Nashville, Clarksville, Bowling Green, just south of Louisville and Lexington. Does get into eastern Tennessee, Knoxville, Gatlinburg, down to Dalton, Georgia. Gets into northeastern Alabama. Does include sections of Virginia. So in this region, there is a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in a given location. Now the southeast today, I would say, I think they actually had a marginal risk for today across areas of the southeast, but they actually dropped it. I'm a little surprised about that. I don't know why they would do that, but there's so much heat and instability in the atmosphere. But watch out for a line of storms sweeping through Kentucky, getting into eastern Tennessee today, and then just steady flow across the Carolinas up into Virginia. We're going to get some pop-up activity in Florida too, tropical downpours. And just lower pressure kind of positioning itself across the Carolinas and then eventually getting off the coast of the southeast. And you can see as I get this into tomorrow, there's some moisture dancing around out here. As I'm telling you, something's going to try to get going once again, just like last week around this time. But just a closer look at some areas I'm really watching out for. Kentucky and Tennessee starting off around, lunchtime. So we get into about 1 p.m., we get into 2 p.m., you can see some storms really firing. Watch out Cookeville down in Knoxville, eastern Kentucky and Tennessee. These storms I do think will have enough flow with them. Like I said, I really think they'll probably put the marginal risk back in place in these areas. At least they should. But these storms could really pack a punch here as they get into the Tri-Cities region of Tennessee. And some storms kind of just hanging around that Nashville to Knoxville corridor later this afternoon. And then we get into this evening. These storms will try to drop down all the way down to Chattanooga, northern Georgia, And then as we get into the evening, just some downpours, but I do think the afternoon hours will be more of a heavy period than the evening hours in these areas. So be careful. These could pack some damaging winds and things like that. And I will watch for some storms also. I don't have it pulled up in the Carolinas and Virginia. Any storms that form in that area, folks, could really get going here. And rainfall between now, I just love when it just randomly logs me out. That's awesome. Does that about once a week. Rainfall between now and the next about 36 hours. Some heavy rainfall possible, especially in Kentucky. So up here in the Northeast, guys, there's not really much to talk about. You guys are getting a nice taste of fall up here. But there's no weather. The air mass is drying out as I speak right now. And in fact, man, I can't wait till I start being able to show this more and more. One thing that I love doing, guys, if you've been sticking with my channel for any length of time or following me on social media, when we get to about mid-August, for here and for the South even, or late August, I begin to search and seek out cold fronts. That first cold front that makes it all the way to the south of late summer, early fall is just heaven sent, even if it just drops it to 65 degrees. But you guys are getting a nice cold front moving in the Northeast this morning. These are dew points. These are not temperatures. So let's get this back in motion. So just remember that. It's not like it's in the 40s. But this is, when you get dew points in the 40s, guys, especially this time of year, you are going to notice a huge difference across New England today. But you can tell there's a tight boundary. Now, dew points don't always show up the best on the HRRR model, but just think of this huge green area. It's just nice, dry air. I mean, it is going to be beautiful today, tomorrow. This will allow for the temperatures to drop down pretty good, too. So enjoy it. Enjoy it up here. We're a little jealous. I think we're going to get a little touch of dry air all the way down to like the southeast, kind of east of the Alps, too. This will give us some cooler mornings about midweek this week, but we'll speak on that a little bit later. But the south central U.S., some storms will weaken in Missouri later this afternoon, and we'll get some more storms. They'll try to get going like the Panhandle of Texas, Oklahoma. We'll see about that. But all in all, I'd watch out for a little activity in the northern counties of Kansas. Of course, we're going to get just scattered showers and downpours across New Mexico and Colorado. That's been the general theme over the last few weeks, honestly, in those areas. But nothing too crazy, really, at all out here. Now, I would say Model Guides is not handling the Minnesota stuff that great, but the storms right now going through Minnesota will continue to cross central areas of Minnesota and eventually get into Wisconsin, where it shows it weakening. We got some individual supercells trying to develop here, right where we do have that 2% risk of a tornado. There's those storms in southeast Nebraska that could get going. And then just more heavy rain trying to develop in the southeastern areas of the state. Then there's that complex of storms out in the western Dakotas, and more storms could explode after midnight tonight around Rochester and southeastern, Minnesota, getting into eastern Iowa. This could deliver a heavy rain threat. And once again, we're probably going to be waking up to a big line of storms in the same areas that are getting it this morning tomorrow morning. I mean, check this out. Big area of storms. A little bit closer look at that slight risk area, and just an area that we need to watch here. And as we are starting to get into this evening, see those big storms coming out of Montana. And just watch this area, especially, I would say, northwestern South Dakota. Could get a tornado or two out of those storms. So just clusters of storms just riding the upper portion of this ridge. So that's a general theme right now. Western U.S. will continue to get some flow across Oregon, getting into Idaho, western Montana. Some storms are possible, a little cyclone developing up here, and just normal convection scattered about across the Rockies. And then we could get some big storms up in Montana later on. Let's just take a look at you guys here, starting off around lunchtime. Then we get into this afternoon, and then we get into 6 p.m. You see some storms around. Some of these could, I wouldn't be surprised, some of these pop up a tornado. Like, look at this storm right here. So, north of Billings, Miles City, I think this will be the worst of the weather. So just be aware of that. Temperatures, man, beautiful in New England. Go on and bring out your fall scented candles. I mean, it's going to be nice. I mean, it's not even that bad across the Ohio Valley either. I mean, you really look 80s. It's just brutally hot across the southeast. I mean, today is just going to be I will say this. If you live in central South Carolina and you're tuning in, when it's hot enough for them to pump out heat advisories in South Carolina, especially in central South Carolina, it's going to be miserable. I mean, I'm looking at my weather station right now, And I mean, it only dropped down to 78 degrees last night, 78 right now. Temperature's already rising once again. So just that time of the year where your AC is just running a lot. I have no idea, like I've said many times, how people keep their AC below 70 degrees in the South and just are okay with spending hundreds of dollars on their power bill for a few months out the year. But, hey, some people are just content with that. But anyways, really hot temperatures surging all the way up into the high plains. So this hot conditions, a little bit cooler across the Northwest. So let's use a timestamp. Let's do this. We'll make this our timestamp. The National Hurricane Center graphic here. So we're gonna dive into scripture a little bit. I think when I started doing this, guys, and by the way, I hope you guys like my new thing right here. I know it doesn't show up very clearly on the videos. It says God is good, but I'm gonna actually cut out some black construction paper and do the outline because it gets a lot brighter actually. But anyways, God is good. If you follow me on social media, you know I post that every morning, and I think it's a cool little backdrop to the channel. But anyways, this morning, 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and this is verse 6 through 8. And I think I've done this before, but I'm just going to do it again. I think it's worth going over again. The point is this: the person who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and the person who sows generously will also reap generously. Each person should do as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or out of compulsion, since God loves a cheerful giver, and God is able to make every grace overflow to you, so that in every way, always having everything you need, you may excel in every good work. Some of us has probably heard this one before. Sometimes it's a tough subject out there in the world, and I'll talk to you about why here in a second. But of course, I'm going to go over my notes. I said giving glorifies God. God will use what you give to bless others, and you will be blessed for it also. Giving, especially with your finances, reflects your trust in God. Giving is not just about money, though. It's your time and resources also. Don't give because you feel like you have to. Give because you want to. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story about me. I do this a lot with the devotions if you're new to this. Now, I started tithing a few years ago, and it was tough. It was very tough to trust God with my finances. And I'll be honest, I kind of did what against what it says in the Bible, and I felt an extreme calling on my heart to tithe. Me and my family did. And at the time, it didn't make sense financially. It didn't at all. We were already giving our time at church. We were volunteering. We were doing some other things, just being involved. But I just felt a calling to do more. So it kept, pestering in my heart in a good way. And finally, we just decided to tithe and give 10%. And, everything ended up working out, ended up being perfectly fine. And we have been blessed for it in many ways. And one of these ways is this YouTube channel, guys. And, there was some dark times, in my 20s. I've kind of told a briefing of my testimony before, me and my family. Me as a leader of my family, I, basically wanted things now. So we rushed the process and didn't fully trust God. And in our early years, me and my wife, we did things backwards. We had kids before marriage, and we bought a house before marriage. And we, just spent money we didn't have. And, so it's crazy when of course, when I started building that relationship with Christ, everything changed. But when I started, it opened up my mind to wanting to give. And I felt a calling to do it. At first, it was very uncomfortable. And I would say that level of being uncomfortable kind of made me just want to hesitate to do it, which hesitating to do it kind of meant that I didn't 100% wasn't bought into the fact of doing it. But when I started doing it, everything changed. Within a couple of days, within a couple of weeks, guys, all of a sudden I just desire to do it. And every time there's an opportunity to help somebody, I try to do it. And it's not always about money. It's not. And I know a lot of people are probably screaming that in the screen, and I get it. It's kind of a conversation I even have had with family members, and I'm not trying to preach to the choir here and tell you guys you need to tithe if you're not. I'm not doing that. Just give what you call in your heart, give your time, your resources. Resources, in my opinion, means gifts. I mean, what are you good at? How can you help other people? Are you really good with talking to others? Are you really good with listening to people? That's a form right there, in my opinion. So anyways, it's changed me and my family's life. And now, it's priority number one, and then, everything comes second as far as, the money flow and stuff like that. But it is tough, guys. And, I would just challenge you guys to, start off giving your time, give your time. How can you help? How can you help people? One thing that I do also, and guys, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but, I've told some of you folks that's been tuning in for a while that, when school starts, I also, I volunteer, go see a kid at our local school. Every Friday morning I meet with them. I've been doing it with the same kid for a few years now, and I love doing it. I love helping. I coach a soccer team. And honestly, that's something I love doing too. And I started doing it because just my kids wanted me to be their coach and they needed help. But now the more time goes by, heck, I'm probably still going to do it after my kids get older. So, it's just a way to give back, show positivity. There's a lot of kids out there that doesn't have a father or mother figure. So what can you do there? So, I think there was a lot more I wanted to add to that, but let me read my notes real quick so I can, jolt my mind here. But, one thing it does is, like I said, it reflects your trust in God. You're going to bless somebody else for that. You never know how your impact could be just listening to somebody. But you're going to be blessed for it too. You're going to be blessed for it too. I promise you that. That shouldn't be your main driver why you do it, but you will be blessed for it. And just doing these Bible devotions, guys, has blessed me. It's challenged me to get more in the Bible. I'll be completely real with you guys. Some mornings I wake up and I know I need to do a Bible devotion, but I'm too tired. I don't really want to do it. I don't want to spend the energy on it. And it's not that I don't want to spend the energy on it, but it's like I don't feel like that mentally I'm ready to get really deep into it right then, because I got other things bothering me in my head, but I know I have to. So all of a sudden that have to goes into I want to, so I end up doing it. So, but anyways, that's all I got rambling here. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful start to your week, and appreciate y'all. Appreciate the people who continue to tune in in what's relatively a slow time. So appreciate y'all very much. That's all I got. We'll talk soon.